Hey everyone, Dankest Dad here, and this time, absolutely for real, no mic problems, I'm going to be talking to you guys about initiative in Wild Hearts. So, if you haven't played Wild Hearts before, know that there is an initiative system where players will take actions back and forth. There's no interruptions, no counterspell, no stack. Simply you pass back and forth doing an action. Very similar to the system in Star Wars Unlimited, Artifact, if you were lucky enough to play that. And while it's not quite the same, kind of like Legends of Runeterra. So, if you are going to be making a play for initiative, if you get it to go first in the game, then you draw an extra card. And if you end a turn with initiative, you also will draw an extra card on that turn. You also are going to be the first person to play your familiars and the first person to take an action. So if you're used to other games like chess or Magic the Gathering, if you want a more card game related example, you are probably used to the maxim that going first is something very, very powerful for you. And in Wild Hearts, it's not always the case. There are pros and cons, and sometimes going first is great. Getting that extra card, being able to dictate the pace of a round is really nice, but more often than not, going first is going to put you at an information disadvantage and give your opponent the information that they need to react to your plays and get ahead in each field. So, to start out though with some of the pros of getting that initiative, you can start off the turn with a really powerful play that can lock your opponent out of options or cement a board state that's favorable to you. The classic example of this in the starter decks is Judge's Decree. So there's a recent change now that actually makes Judge's Decree give the initiative to an opponent, which does hamper it a little bit, but the effect is still very powerful. Being able to play a random card from your hand to a field, then ending the Tamer phase is so good. So just to show you how this works out here, if you're playing without initiative, your opponent can make their plays. Perhaps they've played one inexpensive card, maybe an expensive one, maybe multiple cards with speed, but your opponent has used their resources to do something and have impacted the board that turn. So Judge's Decree can still help you stabilize, help you end a turn, take away a play from them, but it's not the ultimate force that it is when you have initiative. You get to play right away and deny your opponent resources and deny them the opportunity to react. And at any stage of the game, this is great. On the early turns, it gives you a chance to get an additional creature into play in a field, be it hopefully a large ally, or maybe it's even something small like a buff, but it lets you impact the board on a turn in which your opponent cannot. And that advantage can snowball on top of hopefully getting you a few points. Late in the game, Judge's Decree can be the closer, and if you can make sure that you have that initiative going into round 4, it doesn't matter if you give your opponent the initiative. They can hold on to that as they lose the game because you have gotten all the points and ended things before they could even do anything about it. So Judge's Decree, super cool example of what you can do. Another one is Unity Tactics. So rather than take away the ability for your opponent to do anything, Unity Tactics instead will develop lots of stats on your board by giving each ally +2 power and block, and also by giving them block, makes your board very, very resilient to opposing effects. So you drop the Unity Tactics and boom, all of a sudden those Alistair's guides or Crocians that could be moving your allies around no longer work. They can't just get them with the Sune stick or a hidden powers. Unity Tactics just shuts all of that down. So another great way to open a turn. But if you are looking to go second and you don't want to have initiative, you might want to instead cap things off with Lucky Hat. So Lucky Hat is powerful because it does let you delay. So if you want to go second and see what your opponent does, or you've ended up in initiative in a state where it's not advantageous, you can just play the lucky hat, force your opponent to commit an action, and then you can act again in reaction, which is very nice. So on top of reducing cost, Lucky Hat can turn one action into two. Another card to talk about here is Strength Training. So this is one where if you're playing on the back foot, strength training is really good. A lot of your opponents won't really be able to react to a play that you can make with 0 resources, and having a card like Strength Training, perhaps even in multiples, can make it so that you can add power to the board in a way that your ally will have or your opponent, not your ally, will have a difficult time anticipating. And this can lead to some really, really nice swings, can net you a few points, and then playing off initiative, you can hopefully react to their familiar placements when they deploy and keep snowballing your advantage. The last card I'm going to talk about is Alistair's Guide. And this one is cool because, at least in my mind, every part of this card really helps you learn the initiative system and encapsulates what's so great about it. So the first part of the text, seek 4, you may put up to 2 cards in your hand instead, is an excellent way to stall. So if you were to pair this with Lucky Hat, for 0 resources and 2 cards and 2 actions, you can replace those 2 cards with the 2 best in your top 4 and force your opponent to play out into the field, maybe setting up something like Sune Stick, like Adult, like some discards from your Infernander. There are lots and lots of options. But on top of seeing the cards in your deck, it lets you see what your opponent has in store for you and forces them to commit to a play. Now, as for the support effect, moving a tame ally to an adjacent field and giving a friendly familiar +1 is really powerful with the initiative. So, of course, if you don't have it, you can move things around in response to what your opponent has done. But if you're moving with speed, you can then follow it up with a card like Judge's Decree, like Unity Tactics, that can close the door on your opponent and let you just set up that perfect position so that you can end the round in the right spot. So that's a little bit of a insight into how you can use initiative, and I hope that you enjoyed watching. Make sure to check out the channel. I'm going to be posting more guides like this, and of course, get in the Wildhearts Discord, and make sure that you are following along for when the Kickstarter comes out in January. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.